Simply Cooking by MmmChef is brought to you in part by Orleans Physiotherapy, specializing in a wide range of physical rehabilitation services, including acupuncture, cupping, and more. Orleans Physiotherapy, keeping your family moving since 1990.
This program was recorded on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation.
I'm enjoying my favorite Blue Mountain Jamaican coffee and dreaming about travel. Come take a trip in the kitchen with me. Grass-fed meat. I'm sure you've heard that word and people talking about that lately. It's something that is becoming more prevalent and more mainstream. What is grass-fed meat? Well, grass-fed meat in terms of beef and lamb and goat is animals that have been raised on farms and gotten to eat the food that they were meant to eat. Cows and lambs and goats and those types of animals, they are supposed to eat grass. And we have fed them other things than that. But now we're getting back to our original roots, and the world is starting to understand a little bit more about what those things mean. So today I'm going to be showing you some recipes that include some grass-fed beef as well as some grass-fed lamb, and taking you on a little trip around the world. I've got some grass-fed beef in front of me. I've got some stewing beef that I bought this way, and I've got a nice roast. You can buy it in either form, and I'm gonna be turning it into a Jamaican-inspired stew. I love to travel, and I love Caribbean and worldly flavors, and this is one of those dishes that you think you might not like, but when you eat it, it's just, you can't stop eating. So I have my grass-fed stewing beef here already chopped up, and I'm going to cut this one up. What I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be making a beef stew in my pressure cooker here. These are a really popular thing right now. And I'm also going to be making extra to put into a Ziploc bag for later in the week so that I have something ready to just pop into my pressure cooker on a busy day. Now, of course, you can buy your meat already cut up, or you can buy it like this. This is a roast I happen to already have, so I'm just gonna show you. But you can buy really any cut of beef and turn it into a stew, even steaks, flank steak, all those tough cuts of meat, they really do well in stew. We want bite-sized pieces. So I've turned my pressure cooker on to a saute setting, so it's getting nice and hot in the bottom here. If you were going to do this on the stove, you could do it in a Dutch oven, or you could just do it in a regular pot. You would get your pot on nice and hot, and you would get your meat searing. I'm going to sear my meat, not only for the one that I'm making right now, but I'm also going to sear my meat for the one that I'm going to be adding into my Ziploc bag. I left my olive oil over here. I'm just going to grab that. Give a nice turn of the pan. And I'm gonna get my stewing beef in there first. Ooh, you hear that sizzle? That's exactly what we're going for. I'm gonna let this sit in here and get nice and brown. And I'm gonna have this beef ready. I'm just gonna give my hands a little wash. All right. So what makes this stew Jamaican inspired compared to a regular beef stew? Now, it's got Jamaican flavors. We've got some coriander, we've got cumin, we've got some fresh turmeric, fresh ginger, garlic, onion, celery, carrots, mini potatoes, coconut milk, and some Jamaican thyme that actually came from my friend Dorian's garden. She's from Jamaica. All right, this is getting a little bit nice and brown. And this one is for our stew today. I've got a Ziploc bag here ready to go for my stew that I'm gonna make later this week. I'm gonna get this beef just into the bottom of my Ziploc bag. Set that right there. And I'm just gonna start chopping since I already touched the beef and the cutting board is already full of stuff. So we want onion. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing a double batch. You can do this with anything that you do in the Instant Pot. And I'm going to put this right next to me here. So just going to get rid of my onion peels. All right. I chop my onion nice and roughly. I'm going to put one onion into my Instant Pot. And one onion right into my Ziploc bag. I'm going to do the same thing with the carrots and the celery. I don't want too many. And these guys I gave a nice wash. They're garden fresh carrots, so I don't like to peel my garden fresh carrots because there's a lot of nutrition that lives inside of these peels. These carrots are for my pressure cooker, and these 3 carrots will be for my Instant Pot bag. I do this with a lot of stuff. Whenever I'm making chili or a stew or a soup or anything really that simmers on the stove, I like to make extra because then on a night when I'm in a pinch, I can just pull this out of the freezer and I can pop it into my pressure cooker or into a Dutch oven on the stove, and dinner's ready and it's homemade and delicious and super healthy, and I know exactly what's inside of it. Half of this celery is going to go into my pressure cooker, and the other half is going to go into my Ziploc bag. And this is now where I add the spices. I've got my cumin, one over there, one over there. Got my coriander, one over there, and one over there. And I've got a garlic clove in here, and one in here. Same thing for a little bit of fresh turmeric. You want to be careful with this guy because he will stain your hands orange. Look at that color. So much nutrition and antioxidants and anti-inflammatory properties live inside all this color. But it will stain your counter, it will stain your hands, it will stain your clothes. Now I've got ginger, and I'm doing the same thing with the ginger that I did with the turmeric. You notice I'm not peeling my ginger or my turmeric. That's because I'm just grating it up and putting it in for flavor. If I was going to slice this or chop this for another preparation, I might peel it, but I just gave these a good wash and they're good to go. All right, I'll give that a nice stir. Got all those flavors in there. Then we have the beautiful fresh thyme. Half of it's going to go in my pressure cooker and the other half of it's going to go in my bag. Same thing with my mini potatoes. A few in my pressure cooker and the rest in my Ziploc bag. Last piece, coconut milk. Half a jar of coconut milk in there, half a jar of coconut milk in here. Now this guy is ready to go in the freezer and to cook at a later date. But this guy doesn't have enough liquid in it. So I'm actually going to fill the jar with water, and I'm going to get this into my pressure cooker. At this point, you could add beef stock, you could add tomato juice, you could add a beer, you could add some white wine or red wine, but I just like a little bit of water, pure flavor. I'm going to get this set and get my Instant Pot going and getting my stew ready. I'm going to put this into the freezer, and then when we come back from the break, I'm going to show you a Moroccan-inspired meatball recipe and a delicious buckwheat salad. See you soon.
This program is brought to you in part by Orleans Physiotherapy, providing treatments as well as education to promote healthy and active living. Orleans Physiotherapy, keeping your family moving since 1990.
I've got my Jamaican beef stew in my pressure cooker here on, and it is cooking away while I'm going to show you something else. So Jamaica is somewhere that I have been, I think 9 times, and my husband quite a few with me. It's one of our favorite places, and we have some dear friends who own a coffee farm in the Blue Mountains that we have had the opportunity to go and visit. So we love Jamaica, and we love to eat Jamaican-inspired food. But I thought that I would touch on somewhere I've never been before. Do you have a bucket list? One of my bucket list places is Morocco. So I'm going to be showing you a grass-fed lamb Moroccan meatballs. But I say grass-fed lamb, but I actually should just say lamb, because lamb and goat are 2 of the animals that actually cannot be factory farmed and cannot be fed a conventional corn and alternative diet. They have to be grass-fed. So what's really great about that is that if you're on a budget or you're looking for more available cuts that are high quality, grass-fed and raised in a traditional way, lamb and goat is definitely your answer, because all lamb and all goat is grass-fed. So great tip there. So I've got my ground lamb here in my bowl, and and I also have this can of fire roasted tomatoes. I'm gonna place this can of fire roasted tomatoes on the bottom of my casserole dish here. Oh, look at that, there's a tomato stem right in the middle of the can. You can use a can of crushed tomatoes. You can chop up a bunch of fresh tomatoes and put them on the bottom, or just a regular can of diced. They definitely don't have to be fire roasted. I just like to add that extra flavor. So in my meat mixture, to make it a Moroccan flavor, what we're going to be adding is a tiny little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of coriander, a little bit of cumin. And this area of the world likes to use something called harissa, which is a spicy chili paste. I don't have any of that. So what I'm going to use instead is just some flakes of chili, which will still give me that nice bite. I've got 1 egg. And I've got some yummy, beautiful green onions that I'm going to give a nice quick chop to and get into my meatball mix. Now, both of these dishes aren't that authentic. Both of them are my takes on these cuisines. I've been to Jamaica, so I would say my stew is pretty Jamaican, but I've never been to Morocco, so this is just what I imagine they would taste like. All right, I'm gonna give this a little bit of a mix with my right hand and check the consistency. It is a little bit wet, so I'm gonna add in some of my gluten-free breadcrumbs. You guys know that I like to use gluten-free stuff, but at this point you could use your own breadcrumbs, just regular any breadcrumbs. You could add some almond meal. That would actually be really nice with this dish. Almond crumbs would actually probably enhance the flavor and add a little bit of a nuttiness to the meatballs. All right, so now the meat has come together really nicely. Okay, I'm gonna form some of these meatballs and get them into this pan. So the next thing I'm gonna be working on after these meatballs is a Moroccan / Mediterranean inspired buckwheat salad. Buckwheat is a grain that sounds like it might have gluten in it because the word wheat is right in the name, but it's not true. There's no gluten in buckwheat. It is a gluten-free grain, and we cook it the same way that you would cook rice or quinoa. And I've got some on the stove behind me that I put on that's getting nice and cooked so that I can use it to make my Mediterranean salad in the next segment. That salad is going to have some roasted vegetables and all of the Mediterranean flavors like olives and lemon juice and olive oil and garlic. And we're gonna work on that after I get all these little meatballs formed. How many more do I have to do? I'm gonna guess 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I actually can make 7 because I have a little bit of meat left here in the bottom of my bowl. All right, I'm gonna get rid of this meatball bowl and give my hands a quick wash. All right, So I've got a pan behind me that I've lined with parchment paper. It's all ready for me. I've set my oven at 425 on convection bake, and that is the temperature that I want to cook my meatballs at the same time as I'm going to roast my zucchini for the salad that I'm going to make. Let me grab that. I've got a pan, like I said, and some zucchini. Zucchini is something that is used in Mediterranean and Middle Eastern food all the time. You could also use an eggplant here. You don't have to use zucchini. And if you don't like zucchini, you could chop up some bell peppers and roast those instead. Or if you have one zucchini and one bell pepper and one eggplant, you could mix it all up. But I chose zucchini today because here where I am now, it is beautiful and the perfect time of year to get some fresh zucchini. All right, getting this on the pan. I'm making extra, so it's just me and my hubby. We're only two, but as you saw, I made a big extra bag of beef stew. I'm making way too many meatballs for the two of us to eat for one meal, and I'm probably making also way too much salad. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm going to be making this now and then packing some for later in the week, because as you guys know, I am the meal prep queen, and I love to do double duty when I'm in the kitchen and get more than one meal out of the same recipe. I bet you these two recipes here are going to give me maybe even 4 or 5 meals worth for my husband and I. All right, a little bit of olive oil on here. Give this a quick toss. Now, I didn't season anything. You might have noticed I didn't season the meatballs with salt or the zucchini or even my stew. That's something that I like to do at the end for this type of stuff. So I've got my oven set, and I think it just beeped and is preheated. So I'm gonna get these zucchini and these meatballs in the oven, and we're gonna see you after the break. I've got my meatballs out of the oven that roasted for probably about 40 minutes. My zucchini that was roasting, it only stayed in there for about maybe 15 to 20 minutes. I've put it in my salad bowl already to start cooling. And my pressure cooker was done. And I've got my beautiful beef stew just cooling there. I'm gonna work on this beautiful buckwheat salad that I was telling you about. I'm gonna grab my buckwheat, which I've cooked on the stove here. You cook it in the same way that you would cook rice or quinoa. It's kind of a sticky grain, so I'm gonna get some of this into my salad bowl here. I'm probably not even gonna use all of it that I cooked. I'm gonna save some of it for later in the week. That's a really great trick with grains. Rice, quinoa, buckwheat, millet, all of those grains. If you cook them, what you can actually do is you can let them cool completely, and then you can pack them into little Ziploc bags or containers and freeze them, and then you have ready to go grains for a weeknight meal when you're busy. Got my buckwheat in there. So this is a Moroccan inspired salad. As I said, I've never been to Morocco myself, but of all the recipes I've seen, these seem to be common ingredients that seem to be in a lot of their dishes, so I decided to make my take on it. So I've got the roasted zucchini, I've got the buckwheat, I've got a can of chickpeas here. I've got a red onion, I'm gonna give it a quick dice. What's interesting is I grew up Italian, and I never tasted things like cinnamon in a savory form. I never really was exposed to Middle Eastern or Indian or Moroccan or Jamaican or Caribbean, any of those types of flavors. I never actually even tried cilantro or white rice until I was in my 20s. So being exposed to those flavors at first was kind of like, what is this? I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it. But now I love it. Cinnamon in a savory dish is just amazing. So I've got some red onion. I'm only gonna use half of it. I've got some green onions here. I'm gonna use 2. Oh, I'm gonna start crying. I can feel that heat in my eyeballs. Some of my clients have goggles that they wear, or they claim that a piece of bread in their mouth while they're chopping can help them from crying. But as you know, there's nothing I can do. I've cried so many times on my show before. This fell in the sink, but this is some beautiful fresh mint that I got from my friend Dorian's garden when she picked the fresh thyme for me last night. Mint is a very Middle Eastern, Moroccan, Turkish, Tunisian herb, and it is going to go really nicely with the flavors that I have going on in this salad. I'm just going to give the mint a quick rough chop. I don't want it to be too small. I want to see the mint in the salad. 1 garlic clove, a nice quick chop. I don't have something under my board like I should. That's another kitchen trick. If you put a wet cloth underneath your cutting board, it won't slide around like you saw mine was. Dates are very, very, very Moroccan. And the recipe that I saw for Moroccan salad had chopped dates. So I'm going to chop some of these pitted dates that I have. I always have dates on hand. I use them as a sweetener. Sometimes when I'm making a smoothie, instead of adding sugar or maple or honey, I'll actually just throw in a couple dates and it sweetens it up really nicely for me. Look at that. Oh, dates overboard. Okay. Then the last few items of the salad. Some olives. I actually want some of the olive juice. It's quite yummy. It has a briny flavor. It's got nice salt in it. And I think there's a little bit of vinegar. And I'm going to just pop all of those green olives in there. A lemon. Cut side up so that we don't get any of those seeds. And 1 just fell in and 2 just fell in. I got it. And I got the other one too. Perfect. And the other lemon, cut side up so we can try not to get any of those seeds in there. Olive oil. And don't be shy with the olive oil. This buckwheat will really soak up all that lemon juice, and it will soak up all of the juice from the olives and the olive oil. Some freshly mulled sea salt. I like to be generous with the salt here. I didn't add any to the zucchini earlier when I was roasting it, and I didn't add any to the meatballs either, and I didn't add any to my Jamaican stew, so I'm going to season those at the same time. Great. I'm going to give my hand a quick rinse. All right. Let's give this salad a nice toss. Oh wow, look at all the different textures. We've got the chewy buckwheat. We've got the soft chickpeas, the briny olives, the crunchy green onions, the fresh mint, our roasted zucchini. Oh wow, the smells are just intoxicating. It smells so delicious. All right, now I'm gonna grab my platter and I'm gonna plate this up. I've made a lot of food here. As you guys know, I always like to make extra for later, but I'm just gonna show you how I would plate this. Actually, I've got this lovely peppery arugula here. It's one of my favorite greens. So I'm gonna get that on my plate. And scoop a little bit of this buckwheat mixture right here onto my arugula. Oh yeah, that looks great. And then I have these meatballs that came out of the oven. They're nice and browned on top. They have a lot of flavor going on in there, and they have some lovely juice. I don't have another spoon, so I'm gonna use the spoon from my buckwheat, and I'll just grab another one later before I put it back in there. So some meatballs with their juice right here. Now the only thing missing from something like this would be some fresh herb. You could use cilantro. If you don't like cilantro, because many people don't, you could use parsley. You could use some more chopped green onion and give a nice little squeeze of lemon on top. I think actually I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna grab my knife and bang, bang, cheers. add some lemon to my plate just to give it some prettiness. And my favorite thing, my take on a Jamaican beef stew. We've got that broth that's nice and cloudy from the coconut milk that we added in there. We've got our baby potatoes that have cooked all the way through, little pieces of carrot and celery and onion. And let's see how tender this beef is. Oh, it falls right apart in my fork. I'm gonna give this a taste and be taken back to one of my trips to Jamaica, close my eyes and pretend I'm there in the hot, hot sun with the beach outside and the air and the breeze and the smell of pineapple and coconuts in the air. I really can't wait for you to join me next time. Wasn't this so simple?